Hey guys, tonight we're teleporting back to a time when gods threw tantrums over real estate, and a single tree could decide the fate of a city. Imagine your first day in ancient Greece. The air smells like salt and sun-baked stone. Your sandal straps are already threatening to snap, and you're about to witness the original celebrity feud that gave birth to one of history's most iconic cities. Spoiler alert. You might not survive the drama, but at least you'll have a front row seat to divine pettiness. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Maybe leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I love picturing all of us scattered across the globe, wrapped in blankets, diving into myths together. Cool. Now that that's out of the way, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on a grassy hill that will one day be the Acropolis. But right now, it's just a rocky outcrop with a view of the shimmering Saronic Gulf. Below you, a crowd of early Athenians, dressed in tunics that look like they'd fall apart in a stiff breeze, are murmuring excitedly. Two figures tower over them. Poseidon, god of the sea, with salt water dripping from his trident, and a storm cloud permanently hovering over his brow. And Athena, goddess of wisdom, her helmet gleaming, olive wood spear in hand. They're here to settle a debate. Who gets to be the patron deity of this fledgling city? The rules are simple. Each god will offer a gift to the humans, and the people will choose the one they like best. Poseidon goes first because, let's be real, sea gods have a reputation for being impatient. He slams his trident into the ground, and with a rumble, a saltwater spring bursts forth. Behold, he booms, voice echoing like distant thunder. With this fountain your sailors will never thirst. Your ships will ride my waves with favor, and you'll never run out of, well, really salty water. The crowd craze awkward glances. Sure, the spring is impressive, but have you ever tried drinking seawater? It's like gargling with a mouthful of tears and regret. Now it's Athena's turn. She kneels gracefully, pressing her hand to the earth. Where her fingers touch the soil, a small shoot emerges, curling upward into a slender tree with silvery green leaves. As it grows, tiny white flowers bloom, then ripen into plump, glossy olives. This tree, she says, voice calm but warm, will give you food, oil for your lamps, wood for your homes, and a symbol of peace that outlasts any storm. The crowd gasps. Unlike Poseidon's salty gift, this one is practical, versatile, and doesn't make your tongue feel like it's been hit by a tidal wave of sodium. But let's pause for a history lesson. The story of Athena and Poseidon's contest is a cornerstone of Athenian mythology, found in sources like the Bibliotheca by Apollodorus. What's less well known is that the olive tree here isn't just any plant. It's said to be the first of its kind in Attica, gifted by Athena herself to prove her connection to the land. Scholars argue about whether this myth was created to explain why Athens relied so heavily on olives. They were basically the ancient Greek equivalent of a cash crop, or if the olive symbolism was baked into the city's identity from the start. In some versions of the myth, Poseidon didn't just create a spring, he also caused an earthquake that split the ground, revealing a passage to the underworld. Talk about overcompensating. Athena's olive tree, on the other hand, was a masterclass in subtlety. She knew the Athenians would value something that sustained them day to day, not just something flashy and destructive. Plus, olives could be pressed into oil, which was crucial for everything from cooking to lighting lamps to, well, we'll get to the weird uses of olive oil in a later chapter. Spoiler, it involves athletes and a lot of rubbing. Did the contest actually happen at the site of the Acropolis, or was that a later addition to make the myth more dramatic? Some historians argue that the story was a way to legitimize Athena's role as the city's patron, replacing older gods like Poseidon, or even Gaia, the Earth Mother. Others say it's a metaphor for the struggle between sea power, Poseidon, and agricultural wisdom, Athena, which mirrored Athens' own shift from a coastal trading hub to a city-state focused on farming and philosophy. Back to the story. The Athenians huddle together, whispering. The guy next to you is gnawing on a piece of bread, which he's probably dipped in some of that new olive oil. Trust me, it's way better than the seawater. Finally, the eldest citizen steps forward. We choose Athena, he says, for her gift brings life and prosperity, not just power and chaos. Poseidon scowls, muttering something about ungrateful mortals, but Athena just smiles, gently brushing a leaf of her new tree. From that day on, the city would be named Athens, after its wise patroness, and the olive tree would be sacred, protected by law. Cutting one down was punishable by death. You watch as the crowd cheers, some kneeling to touch the tree's roots, others filling jars with the fresh olives. Poseidon storms off, grumbling about how he'll get his revenge someday. Spoiler, he floods a bunch of cities, because sea gods hold grudges. But Athena stays, instructing the people on how to care for their new treasure. Prune them in winter, she says, but never too harshly. Even wisdom needs time to grow. As the sun sets over the gulf, casting long shadows over the olive tree, you realize something. This isn't just a story about gods and gifts. It's about how a single plant can shape a civilization. The Athenians would go on to build an empire based on olive oil, using it as currency, medicine, and even a symbol of victory in the Olympics. More on that in a later chapter. And all of it started with a goddess kneeling in the dirt, planting a seed that would outlive temples, wars, and even the gods themselves. So as we wrap up the first chapter of our journey, take a moment to appreciate the humble olive tree. Today's snack, ancient Athens' lifeblood, and the ultimate flex in a godly pissing contest. Tomorrow we'll dive deeper into the world of Athena's gift, exploring the secrets of the Acropolis, and how the ancient Greeks turned a tree into a symbol of wisdom, peace, and really good salad dressing. Hey guys, tonight we're teleporting back to a time when gods threw tantrums over real estate, and a single tree could decide the fate of a city. Imagine your first day in ancient Greece. The air smells like salt and sun-baked stone. Your sandal straps are already threatening to snap, and you're about to witness the original celebrity feud that gave birth to one of history's most iconic cities. Spoiler alert, you might not survive the drama, but at least you'll have a front row seat to divine pettiness. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Maybe leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I love picturing all of us scattered across the globe, wrapped in blankets, diving into myths together. Cool. Now that that's out of the way, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on a grassy hill that will one day be the Acropolis, but right now, it's just a rocky outcrop with a view of the shimmering Saronic Gulf. Below you, a crowd of early Athenians, dressed in tunics that look like they'd fall apart in a stiff breeze, are murmuring excitedly. Two figures tower over them. Poseidon, god of the sea, with salt water dripping from his trident, and a storm cloud permanently hovering over his brow. And Athena, goddess of wisdom, her helmet gleaming, olive wood spear in hand. They're here to settle a debate. Who gets to be the patron deity of this fledgling city? The rules are simple. Each god will offer a gift to the humans, and the people will choose the one they like best. Poseidon goes first, because let's be real, sea gods have a reputation for being impatient. He slams his trident into the ground, and with a rumble, a saltwater spring bursts forth. Behold, he booms, voice echoing like distant thunder. With this fountain, your sailors will never thirst, your ships will ride my waves with favor, and you'll never run out of, well, really salty water. The crowd exchanges awkward glances. Sure, the spring is impressive, but have you ever tried drinking seawater? It's like gargling with a mouthful of tears and regret. Now it's Athena's turn. She kneels gracefully, pressing her hand to the earth. Where her fingers touch the soil, A small shoot emerges, curling upward into a slender tree with silvery green leaves. As it grows, tiny white flowers bloom, then ripen into plump, glossy olives. This tree, she says, voice calm but warm, will give you food, oil for your lamps, wood for your homes, and a symbol of peace that outlasts any storm. The crowd gasps. Unlike Poseidon's salty gift, this one is practical, versatile, and doesn't make your tongue feel like it's been hit by a tidal wave of sodium. But let's pause for a history lesson. The story of Athena and Poseidon's contest is a cornerstone of Athenian mythology, found in sources like the Bibliotheca by Apollodorus. What's less well known is that the olive tree here isn't just any plant. It's said to be the first of its kind in Attica, gifted by Athena herself to prove her connection to the land. Scholars argue about whether this myth was created to explain why Athens relied so heavily on olives. They were basically the ancient Greek equivalent of a cash crop, or if the olive symbolism was baked into the city's identity from the start. In some versions of the myth, Poseidon didn't just create a spring, he also caused an earthquake that split the ground, revealing a passage to the underworld. Talk about overcompensating. Athena's olive tree, on the other hand, was a masterclass in subtlety. She knew the Athenians would value something that sustained them day to day, not just something flashy and destructive. Plus, olives could be pressed into oil, which was crucial for everything from cooking to lighting lamps to, well, we'll get to the weird uses of olive oil in a later chapter. Spoiler, it involves athletes and a lot of rubbing. Did the contest actually happen at the site of the Acropolis? Or was that a later addition to make the myth more dramatic? Some historians argue that the story was a way to legitimize Athena's role as the city's patron, replacing older gods like Poseidon or even Gaia, the Earth Mother. Others say it's a metaphor for the struggle between sea power, Poseidon, and agricultural wisdom, Athena, which mirrored Athens' own shift from a coastal trading hub to a city-state focused on farming and philosophy. Back to the story. The Athenians huddle together, whispering. The guy next to you is gnawing on a piece of bread, which he's probably dipped in some of that new olive oil. Trust me, it's way better than the seawater. Finally, the eldest citizen steps forward. We choose Athena, he says, for her gift brings life and prosperity, not just power and chaos. Poseidon scowls, muttering something about ungrateful mortals, but Athena just smiles, gently brushing a leaf of her new tree. From that day on, the city would be named Athens, after its wise patroness, and the olive tree would be sacred, protected by law. Cutting one down was punishable by death. You watch as the crowd cheers, some kneeling to touch the tree's roots, others filling jars with the fresh olives. Poseidon storms off, grumbling about how he'll get his revenge someday. Spoiler, he floods a bunch of cities, because sea gods hold grudges, but Athena stays, instructing the people on how to care for their new treasure. Prune them in winter, she says, but never too harshly. Even wisdom needs time to grow. As the sun sets over the gulf, casting long shadows over the olive tree, you realize something. This isn't just a story about gods and gifts. It's about how a single plant can shape a civilization. The Athenians would go on to build an empire based on olive oil, using it as currency, medicine, and even a symbol of victory in the Olympics. More on that in a later chapter. And all of it started with a goddess kneeling in the dirt, planting a seed that would outlive temples, wars, and even the gods themselves. So as we wrap up the first chapter of our journey, take a moment to appreciate the humble olive tree, today's snack, ancient Athens' lifeblood, and the ultimate flex in a godly pissing contest. Tomorrow we'll dive deeper into the world of Athena's gift, exploring the secrets of the Acropolis and how the ancient Greeks turned a tree into a symbol of wisdom, peace, and really good salad dressing. The sun rises gold over the Athenian hills, and somehow, you fast forward it a few decades. The rocky outcrop where Athena planted her first olive tree is now sprouting marble. Columns rise like petrified forest giants. Stone carvers chisel friezes of gods and heroes. And in the heart of it all stands the Parthenon, A temple so bright it could blind a mortal who forgets to squint. Athena herself is here, her bronze helmet gleaming as she gestures for you to follow her up the newly built Propylaea gateway. "Try not to trip over the sacrificial ox bones," she murmurs. "The builders keep leaving them lying around like ancient IKEA instructions." You're stepping into the birth of the Acropolis, the high city, a place that will one day be crammed with tourists, taking selfies, but right now is all raw marble dust and the smell of fresh cedar wood. Athena pauses by a shallow stone trough filled with olive seeds, each one the size of your thumb, their surfaces marked with tiny indentations that look almost like... "Wait, is that a miniature owl?" "Ah, you noticed," she says, plucking a seed from the trough. "Every olive seed I gave the Athenians carries the impression of my owl, Minerva, to the Romans who'll steal her later. It's our little anti-counterfeiting mark." The Athenian Acropolis wasn't built in a day. Construction of the Parthenon alone took nearly 15 years, starting in 407 BCE, under Pericles. But the idea of a sacred hilltop dedicated to Athena dates back to the Bronze Age. What's less known is that the earliest temples here were made of wood and mud brick, replaced by marble only after the Persians burned the city in 480 BC. The Athenians took building back better, to a divine level. Those owl-marked seeds weren't just for planting. In ancient Athens, carrying an olive seed with the owl indentation was like having a VIP pass to Athena's cult. Priests would hold them up to the light during festivals, checking for the perfect owl silhouette. If your seed was smooth or misshapen, you might get stuck cleaning the temple latrines instead of joining the sacred procession. It's not elitism, Athena insists as you watch a nervous acolyte get his seed rejected. It's quality control. Would you trust a sloppy seed to represent wisdom? Did the owl-marked seeds actually exist? Or is this just a cute myth later generations tacked onto the story? Some archaeologists point to tiny olive-shaped terracotta tokens found near the Acropolis, inscribed with owl motifs, and argue they were used as religious identifiers. Others roll their eyes, saying it's more likely a metaphor for Athena's watchful eye over her city, not literal seed engravings. Next, they'll claim the olives themselves could recite philosophy, sniffs a skeptical historian in your mind, probably sipping too much ouzo. Athena leads you past a group of women weaving a giant woolen peplos, a ceremonial robe for her statue, embroidered with scenes of her victory over Poseidon. Nearby, a priest is lecturing a group of initiates about the 3 sacred duties of the olive tree. Never let its roots touch metal, lest it lose its sparkle. Always prune with a bronze sickle, iron is for barbarians. And never, ever eat the first harvest. Those olives are for Athena's altar. Thank you very much. Don't even think about pocketing one, Athena whispers. The temple guards have a 6th sense for olive theft. They're like overgrown guard owls. You wander over to the edge of the Acropolis, where a sheer cliff drops to the city below. Down there, farmers are planting rows of olive trees, each sapling tied with a white ribbon to show it's sacred. A kid tries to climb one, only to get chased off by a shepherd waving a branch. "See that grove?" Athena says, pointing to a cluster of trees on the slope. "The first ones I grew from those owl seeds. Their roots drink from the same soil as the Parthenon's foundation, literally grounding wisdom in the earth. Plus, their olives make a killer oil. Even Poseidon grudgingly admits it's smoother than his seawater margaritas." Ancient Athenians believed that olive trees could sense impurity. If a worshipper lied during a sacrifice, the tree nearest the altar would supposedly wilt, or its olives would turn bitter. There's a story of a politician who tried to bribe a priest by stuffing olive seeds in his toga. Both the seeds and the politician were found the next day, the seeds sprouting weirdly twisted owl marks. The politician banished to Sparta, which, let's be real, was worse than death. How much of this sacred agriculture was actual religious practice? And how much was just clever propaganda by the Athenian elite? Some argue that the olive tree's sanctity was a way to protect Athens' economic lifeblood. Olive oil was their main export after all. and declaring it sacred meant no one could tax or steal it without angering the gods. Others say it's deeper than that. The tree became a symbol of Athena's connection to her people, a living metaphor for wisdom that needed care and patience. Just like a city. As the day wears on, you notice the light changing on the olive leaves. Their silvery undersides catch the sunset, making the groves look like they're covered in liquid mercury. Athena is now sitting on a half-finished column, teaching a young scribe how to carve her owl symbol into a boundary stone. Remember, she says, sharp lines, wise eyes. No googly eyes, please. This is a sacred symbol, not a tavern sign. You realize that in this world the olive tree isn't just a plant. It's a language. Every mark on a seed, every rule of pruning, every ritual around its harvest, is a way for the Athenians to say, we belong to Athena, and she belongs to us. It's a far cry from the supermarket olives you'll later pick out of your pizza. Pitted and pre-salted, here they're sacred tokens, wisdom made tangible, and a reminder that even the mightiest gods leave their mark in the smallest ways, like a tiny owl pressed into a seed, waiting to grow into something that will outlast empires. By nightfall, the Acropolis is lit by olive oil lamps, their flames dancing like tiny constellations. Athena stands at the temple entrance, watching over her city, as a priestess lays a basket of perfect, owl-marked olives at her feet. You take a seat on a warm marble slab, listening to the distant bleat of a goat and the murmur of the city below. Tomorrow, we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of olive tree care, because even sacred plants need fertilizer, and the ancient Greeks had a very specific and slightly gross way of keeping their olives happy. Hint: it involves wine, lots of wine. The next morning, you're woken by the scent of crushed olives and something fermented. Athena is already waiting at the edge of the Acropolis, gesturing for you to follow her down a winding path, lined with stone markers, carved with her owl symbol. Today, she says, we're going to meet the unsung heroes of Athens. No, not the philosophers or the sailors, the farmers, and their very Phythic approach to keeping my trees happy. You follow her into a valley, where rows of olive trees stretch toward the horizon, their branches heavy with young fruit. The air here is thick with the earthy tang of damp soil and something vaguely alcoholic. Ah, the wine fertilizer, Athena says, noticing your nose wrinkle. Don't knock it until you try it. Think of it as a spa day for the roots. Red wine exfoliation, if you will. Olive trees were so crucial to ancient Athens that they were protected by law. Cutting one down was punishable by death, and even damaging a sacred grove could get you fined or exiled. The Athenians didn't just grow olives, they worshipped the act of growing them, seeing each tree as a living extension of Athena's wisdom. As Aristotle later wrote, in between complaining about Plato, the olive is not merely a plant, it is the soul of Attica made woody. The wine fertilizer Athena's pointing to is no joke. Ancient Greek farmers would mix leftover grape skins, stems and fermented wine dregs with donkey manure, and let it compost for months. The result? A stinky, nutrient-rich paste they'd spread around the roots of olive trees. The acidity from the wine keeps pests away, Athena explains. Scooping up a handful of the paste, you politely step back, and the sugars feed the soil microbes. Plus, it gives the olives a subtle notes of plum and ambition. Was the olive tree native to Attica, or did it arrive via trade from Asia Minor? Some scholars point to ancient texts claiming Athena invented the tree for Athens, while others cite archaeological evidence of olive pits in Neolithic Greek settlements. They've been arguing about this since Homer was scribbling epic poems on olive leaves. Athena sighs, kicking a clump of soil. Personally, I think it's like asking if a poet invents words or just arranges them. Can't a goddess and a tree just have a meet cute? You watch as a farmer kneels beside a young tree, carefully wrapping its trunk with a strip of wool. What's he doing? You ask. Protecting it from frost, Athena says, and from goats. Those little horned menaces would chew through a marble column if they thought it tasted like thyme. She pauses, Then adds, also, never trust a goat. They've got the moral compass of a politician who just found a jar of honey. As you wander deeper into the grove, you notice that some trees have small clay tablets tied to their branches, inscribed with symbols you don't recognize. Prayer tablets, Athena explains. Farmers write wishes for good harvests, then hang them here. Last year someone asked for olives as big as Poseidon's ego. The gods gave him a single gigantic olive that rolled downhill and crushed a shed. Lesson learned: be specific. The Athenians had a ritual called the Iliya, a festival dedicated to the first olive harvest. During the ceremony, a young girl chosen for her unblemished virtue, read, someone who hadn't yet accidentally killed a sacred chicken, would pick the first olive with a golden sickle. The olive was then placed in a silver jar and buried beneath the Parthenon for a year to let it marinate in wisdom, as Athena puts it. What happened after that? No one knows. Scholars speculate it was either eaten in a secret ritual or used as a paperweight for divine paperwork. Did these elaborate farming rituals actually improve olive yields? Or were they just a way to keep the peasantry connected to the cult of Athena? Some agricultural historians argue that the wine method was surprisingly scientific, boosting soil pH and preventing root rot. Others roll their eyes and say, please, it's just fancy compost with a side of mythology. Either way, Athena's trees thrived, and Athens became the olive oil capital of the ancient world. So maybe there's something to talking to your plants like their sacred roommate. As the afternoon sun begins to dip, Athena stops by an older tree, its trunk gnarled and twisted like a philosopher's beard. This one's been here since the contest with Poseidon, she says, tracing a scar on its bark. See that mark? A lightning strike from Zeus, back when he was having a tantrum about mortals liking me better. The tree survived. Zeus threw a hissy fit and started throwing thunderbolts at clouds for a week. Mortals thought it was a weather pattern. You squat down, brushing your fingers over the tree's roots, which snake through the soil like veins. Athena picks up a fallen olive and rolls it between her palms. People think wisdom is all about grand ideas and marble temples, she says, but it's also about knowing when to prune, when to fertilize, and when to leave a tree alone to do what it does best. Wisdom grows slowly, just like this. As evening falls, the farmers begin to light small fires between the rows, drive away nocturnal pests with the scent of rosemary and cedar. You sit on a stone wall, listening to their low voices sing a hymn to Athena, their words blending with the rustle of olive leaves. Tomorrow, we'll leave the groves behind and dive into the bustling Athenian agora, where olive oil isn't just a sacred offering, it's a currency, a beauty product, and even a weapon in disguise. Spoiler, you'll never look at a jar of olive oil the same way again. The sun hasn't fully climbed over the Acropolis when you hear the Athenian agora waking up, the clatter of wooden carts, the bleat of a stubborn donkey, and the sharp green scent of freshly pressed olive oil hanging in the air like a liquid hug. Athena is already there, leaning against a marble column decorated with her owl motif, watching a merchant argue with a customer over a jar of oil so golden it could pass for liquid sunlight. Welcome to the ancient world, CVS, she says, where olive oil is aisle 5, 6, and 7. Need sunscreen? We've got it. Rust remover? Got that too. Want to smell like a god? Spoiler, we're all using the same product. You step into the chaos. Stalls piled high with terracotta jars, labeled First Press from the Sacred Grove, complete with tiny owl stamps, vendors rubbing oil into leather sandals to make them waterproof, and a group of athletes, glistening, bronzed, and slightly sticky practicing discus, throws in a sandy corner. Their skin shines like they've been marinated in sunlight, which, come to think of it, they kind of have. Olive oil was the lifeblood of ancient Athens' economy. It wasn't just a food, it was currency. Athenian coins carried Athena's owl and an olive branch, and the city exported oil by the shipload, trading it for grain, marble, and even the occasional exotic spice that made the philosophers' dinners slightly less bland. As the historian Thucydides noted, without olive oil, Athens would be like a trireme without sails, useless and sticky. That glistening layer on the athletes. It's not just for show. Ancient Greek athletes covered themselves in olive oil before competitions, partly for hygiene. Sweat and dust stick to oil, making it easier to scrape off with a metal tool called a strigil, but also because they believed it made their muscles sing to the gods. Bonus gross fact: after scraping off the oil, sweat and dead skin, they'd sell the gunk as a souvenir. Collector's item, Athena deadpans, perfect for that friend who loves history and exfoliation. When did olive oil transition from a sacred offering to a mundane household staple? Some scholars argue it was always dual purpose. Athena gave the tree for both worship and practical use. Others say the shift happened during the Peloponnesian War, when Athens needed every drop for lamp fuel, waterproofing shields, and even healing wounds. Olive oil mixed with honey was a popular antiseptic. Personally, Athena says, watching a woman massage oil into her baby's scalp, I think the sacred and the ordinary were never that separate. Wisdom isn't about staying on a pedestal, it's about getting your hands dirty, then using oil to clean them. You wander to a cosmetic stall where a vendor is selling small pots of scented oil, infused with rose petals, lavender, and something that smells suspiciously like burnt honey. For the face, she tells a customer, it smooths wrinkles and repels suitors who can't appreciate a good skincare routine. Athena leans in. Don't let her fool you. The real secret is in the cedarwood oil keeps the moths out of your woolen togas. Fashion and function, baby. Over by the blacksmith's forge, a man is rubbing oil into the hinges of a bronze helmet, muttering about Poseidon's salty sea air ruining his work. Olive oil's the original WD-40, Athena notes. Sailors even greased their ship ropes with it to prevent rot, though I do recommend washing your hands before dinner. Nothing ruins a symposium like a side of lamp oil flavor. In religious rituals, olive oil was poured over altars as a symbol of Athena's blessings, but it also had a practical side. Burning it in lamps kept the temples lit through the night, making the gods' homes feel cozy. Imagine trying to meditate in the dark, Athena says, with only the faint glow of a sacrificial sheep's fat to guide you. Olive oil lamps were basically the ancient equivalent of mood lighting. Did the universal use of olive oil make Athenians healthier, or did all that oil consumption lead to ancient heart disease? Some medical historians point to Greece's Mediterranean diet, heavy on olives, fish, and legumes, as a precursor to modern health fads, while others joke, have you seen how much oil they poured on their bread? It's a miracle their togas didn't catch fire. As the day heats up, the athletes retire to a shaded corner, scraping off their oil with strigils that leave faint metallic screeches in the air. A young boy runs by, clutching a jar of oil he's probably borrowed from his mother, and nearly collides with a priest carrying a golden urn of sacred oil for the Parthenon. Careful, Athena calls, steadying the urn. That's the good stuff, aged in marble jars underground, like liquid wisdom with a vintage. You realize that in this world, olive oil is a language spoken in every corner, by the farmer tending his grove, the athlete oiling his muscles, the priest anointing an altar, and the grandmother rubbing it into her granddaughter's chapped hands. It's a symbol of peace, a tool for survival, and a reminder that Athena's gift wasn't just a tree, it was a toolkit for life. By evening, the agora glows with olive oil lamps, their flames dancing like tiny versions of the goddess herself. Athena sits on a stone bench, watching the crowd thin out, as a vendor packs up his last jars, humming a hymn to her name. Tomorrow, she says, we'll meet someone who proves even gods can have bad days. Pandora, the woman with the famous box. Spoiler, olive oil makes a brief heroic cameo. But for now, she gestures to the flickering lights and the distant rustle of olive trees on the Acropolis slope. Let the scent of oil and the hum of the city lull you into sleep. After all, even wisdom needs its rest. The morning after the agora's hustle, you wake to the sound of distant thunder, not the angry rumble of Poseidon, but the nervous chatter of sparrows fleeing a storm cloud that looks suspiciously like smoke. Athena is already pacing outside your makeshift shelter, her spear tapping impatiently against her shield. "Bad news," she says. "Pandora's in town, and she brought the box." You follow her through a misty forest on the outskirts of Athens, the air thick with the smell of damp earth and something metallic, fear maybe. Up ahead, a cave mouth gapes like a toothless grin, smoke curling from its depths. Inside, you see a woman with hair like tangled vines, kneeling over a wooden box carved with intricate owl motifs. "Wait, isn't that Athena's symbol?" "Pandora," Athena mutters. "The original curiosity killed the cat case. Except in her case, it killed all of humanity. In the classic myth, Pandora was given a jar, not a box. Thanks, Renaissance artists. By the gods, filled with all the world's evils. She opened it, releasing plagues, war, and general misery, leaving only Elpis, hope inside. But here's the twist. In some obscure Athenian versions, that hope was actually a tiny olive shoot, a gift from Athena herself, hidden at the bottom of the jar. Pandora looks up, her eyes wide and guilty. "I thought it was a present," she cries, gesturing to the box now lying open, black smoke pouring out, like a spilled inkwell. Zeus said, "Don't open it." But have you ever seen a box this pretty? It smelled like cedar and wisdom. From the smoke emerge shadowy figures. Disease, a coughing wraith. War, a helmeted brute swinging a rusty sword. And worst of all, anxiety, a bat-like thing that circles your head, whispering about unpaid olive taxes. But wait, at the bottom of the box, something glimmers, a single olive seed, sprouting a delicate green shoot. As the disasters swirl around you, the shoot grows rapidly, its leaves shimmering with a faint silver light, pushing back the darkness like a tiny sun. "That," Athena says, plucking the shoot from the box, "is why I carved my owl into the wood, a fail-safe." Zeus thought he was being clever, filling the box with misery, but I hid a blessing in the craftsmanship itself. Most people think Pandora's box was made of oak, but ancient Athenian pottery fragments depict it as olive wood, etched with Athena's owl to ward off sloppy curses. Some scholars argue this makes the box a literal gift from Athena, meant to teach humans that even in chaos, wisdom and olives can take root. Zeus threw a tantrum when he found out, Athena admits. Said I was ruining his dramatic arc. Please. Someone had to add a plot twist. Was the olive shoot intended as a symbol of hope, or was it just a happy accident? Some argue Athena planned it all along, planting the seed in the box as a metaphor for finding solutions in her own gift. Others say it's a later addition, a way for Athenians to tie their beloved olive tree into a more famous and gloomier myth. Zeus still insists it's bad world building. Athena snorts, but he's just mad his curse had a loophole. As the smoke clears, you notice the olive shoot has grown into a small tree, its roots winding through the cave floor, pushing aside the last tendrils of disease and war. Pandora stares, tearful but fascinated. So even when we mess up, she says, there's this. Athena nods. Softer now. Chaos is inevitable. But wisdom, like an olive tree, takes time to grow. You can't kill it with a single storm. In some rural Athenian festivals, children would reenact Pandora's story, using a hollow olive wood box, filled with plastic olives. Okay, ancient version, clay tokens, and paper cutouts of calamity. The winner was the kid who could plant the olive token fastest, symbolizing humanity's ability to overcome bad choices with practical solutions. Better than therapy, Athena jokes. Watching a squirrel nibble on a cave-grown olive. Did the inclusion of the olive shoot dilute the original myth's message of eternal suffering? Or did it enhance it by adding a message of resilience? Classicists are split, with some calling it a cutesy Athenian rewrite, and others praising it as religious propaganda at its most poetic. Athena, for her part, just shrugs. Mythology is like olive oil. You can use it for lamps, battles, or beauty. Why not let it shine in a dark story too? As the sun breaks through the cave mouth, the olive tree glows, its leaves casting tiny owl-shaped shadows on the stone floor. Pandora closes the empty box, now just a pretty trinket, and smiles for the first time. Maybe I'll start a garden, she says, brushing dirt from her tunic. Olives, maybe. They're low maintenance and waterproof against godly tantrums. You follow Athena out of the cave, the scent of fresh olive leaves lingering like a promise. The storm has passed, and in the distance, you can see Athenian farmers replanting a grove that was damaged by the smoke, using, of course, owl-marked seeds from the sacred grove. See, Athena says, even Pandora's mess becomes a lesson. Wisdom isn't about never falling. It's about growing back stronger, and maybe planting a tree where the storm blew through. By nightfall, the cave is a peaceful spot, the olive tree standing sentinel over Pandora's new home. You sit beneath its branches, listening to the rustle of leaves that sound almost like whispered secrets. Secrets of calamity and hope, of gods who meddle and trees that endure. Tomorrow, we'll follow those olive branches into the world of diplomacy, where a single sprig can stop a war, or start a very polite argument. But for now, let the quiet of the forest and the gentle sway of the tree lull you into rest. After all, even in a world of boxes and curses, there's always room for a seed to grow. The morning after Pandora's cave, you're greeted by the sight of Athenian messengers lining up outside the Acropolis, each clutching a long, supple olive branch, leaves fresh, tips dipped in beeswax to keep them from wilting. Athena is overseeing the preparation, plucking a stray twig from one man's branch with a tut. Sparta's warriors may be all muscle and vinegar, she says, but even they respect a well-groomed olive branch. It's like showing up to a sword fight in a tailored toga. You're still armed but fashionable. You join the procession as it marches north, the olive branches swaying like green flags in the breeze. The journey to Sparta is a 2-day trudge through dusty hills, but the messengers chatter nervously about the olive branch protocol, a ritual so specific it makes Athena's seed owl obsession look casual. First, the branch must be cut from a tree that's never been pruned by iron, one whispers, only bronze sickles, and it has to have exactly 7 leaves on each stem, no more, no less. Sparta counts. Olive branches were the ancient Greek equivalent of a white flag, but with extra symbolism. When a city wanted to negotiate peace, it sent Siger, carrying olive sprigs, a tradition so sacred that even war-hungry Sparta had to let them pass unharmed. Herodotus wrote about Persian envoys being killed for ignoring this custom, which the Greeks considered a crime against the gods, and more importantly, bad manners. In Sparta, the olive branch wasn't just a peace sign, it was a test of patience. The Spartan elders would make messengers hold the branch for hours in their drafty council hall, watching to see if they'd drop it. A sign of weakness, or accidentally crush the leaves. A sign of disrespect. They're like overgrown guard dogs, Athena mutters. But instead of barking, they just squint judgmentally. When did the olive branch officially become a symbol of peace? Some say it started with Athena's contest, linking the tree to prosperity over war. Others point to the Olympic Games, where winners were crowned with olive wreaths, symbolizing victory, without bloodshed. Sparta claims they invented it. Athena scoffs, which is rich, coming from a city that names its babies battle axe and spearmaster. As you enter Sparta, the air turns colder, the streets quieter. No agoras here, just stone barracks, and the faint clatter of armor. The messengers pause at the city gates, holding their branches high. A Spartan guard, built like a marble statue, that's been hit with a grumpy spell, steps forward, inspecting the leaves. 7 per stem, he grunts. Good. Any sap on your hands? No? Proceed, but touch nothing. And smile less. This is Sparta. Inside the council hall, Spartan elders sit on rough wooden benches, their beards as stiff as their resolve. The lead Athenian messengers, a man named Cleon, who smells faintly of olive oil. Smart move. Spartans respect consistency. Lays the branch at their feet. We bring peace, he says, rooted in the wisdom of Athena, nurtured by the soil of Attica. Let our swords rust, and our olive groves grow together. A Spartan elder, whose face looks like it's been chiseled from a granite frown, picks up the branch, sniffing it like it might be poisoned. Your olive oil makes our warriors soft, he rumbles, but your tree, it endures. Even our harsh hills could grow it, if we bothered with such feminine pursuits. Athena leans in. Translation: we want your oil, but we'll never admit it. Spartans speak in grunts and backhanded compliments. It's their love language. In some diplomatic crises, cities would exchange sacred olive roots as a sign of trust, burying them together in a shared border to symbolize intertwined futures. The Athenians once sent a root to Corinth, only for the Corinthians to plant it in a sewage ditch. Diplomacy failed, Athena says, but the tree survived. Olive roots are stubborn like that, kinda like me. Was the olive branch's peace symbolism universal in Greece, or just an Athenian propaganda tool? Archaeologists have found olive branch motifs on Mycenaean pottery, suggesting the symbol predates the city-states. But Sparta's reluctant adoption of it makes some scholars argue it was a latecomer, popularized by Athens' soft power and really good olive oil. After hours of grunting negotiations, Sparta wants more oil. Athens wants less spearing. The elders finally nod. The olive branch is hung above the council hall door, a rare splash of green in a city of bronze and blood. We accept your peace, the head elder says. But if you ever send a shipment with less than 100 jars, we'll revisit this conversation, with spears, and slightly less grumpiness. As you leave Sparta, the sun setting behind its forbidding walls, Athena twirls a leftover olive twig in her hand. See? Even the grumpiest warriors respect a symbol that outlives their swords. The olive branch isn't just a truce. It's a promise that something greener, wiser can grow where war used to stand. That night, camped beneath a starlit sky, you trace the outline of an olive leaf in the dirt. The messengers laugh softly, sharing stories of home, their hands still sticky from handling the branches. Tomorrow, we'll dive into the brainy world of Plato's Academy, where olive leaves aren't just for peace, they're for scholarships, debates, and confusing metaphors about wisdom growing in groves of the mind. But for now, let the rustle of your own imaginary olive branch lull you to sleep, safe in the knowledge that even in a world of swords and scowls, a single sprig can plant the seed of something better. The morning after Sparta's grumpy truce, you're transported to the shady groves of the Academia, a place so peaceful you half expect to hear birds chirping in iambic pentameter. Athena is leaning against a gnarly olive tree, watching a group of young men in flowing white togas argue over a scroll that looks older than the Parthenon. Welcome to Plato's brainchild, she says, where philosophy is served with a side of olive leaf confetti, and no one's allowed to mention that olives are technically fruits. It's a very serious place. You wander closer, stepping over a pile of discarded olive leaves. Apparently the Academy's version of scrap paper. The men are debating something called the forms, but your attention is caught by the olive leaf crowns atop their heads. Each one's slightly different. Some have perfectly symmetrical leaves. Others are wilting dramatically, as if mirroring their wearer's intellectual crises. Those are the scholarship crowns, Athena explains. Plato gives them out like participation trophies, but with more metaphysics. Earn one, and you get free olives from the sacred grove. Fail, and you're stuck with the generic store brand stuff. Mortifying. Plato's Academy, founded in 3087 BCE, was the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. Students studied math, astronomy, and philosophy. But what's less known is that olive leaves were central to its culture. According to Diogenes Laertius, Plato himself would crown top students with olive leaves picked from a tree he claimed was a descendant of Athena's original gift. It's like Harvard giving out sweatshirts with a tree logo, Athena says, but way more pretentious. In the academy's basement, which smells suspiciously like old books and bad poetry, there's a secret society of students who believe olive leaf veins hold the key to Athena's wisdom. They spend nights sketching leaf patterns, claiming each vein corresponds to a divine neural pathway. Last year, one kid tried to map his own brain to a leaf, Athena whispers, and ended up with a very confused doctor. Science, everyone. Did Plato's olive leaf crowns have actual symbolic meaning? Or were they just a clever way to keep students invested in Athena's cult? Classicists argue over whether the leaves represented eternal wisdom, as the Academy claimed, or were a sneaky PR move to align philosophy with Athens' sacred tree. Plato probably just liked the aesthetic, sniffs a modern historian in your mind. But try telling that to the guy who wrote his thesis on olive leaf geometry and the soul's immortality. You follow the sound of debate to a sunlit clearing, where Plato himself is pacing, his beard trailing like a philosophical river. Old. The olive tree, he declares, gesturing to the gnarled trunk beside him. Its form is imperfect, yet it embodies the ideal olive tree in the realm of forms. The leaves you wear are mere shadows of the true, eternal leaf. He's cut off by a student who accidentally drops his crown, the leaves crumbling into dust. Exactly. Plato cries, mortal imperfection. Now write 200 lines on why olives are better than pomegranates. The Academy had a ritual called the philobolia, or leaf shower, where students would throw olive leaves at visiting scholars they liked. If the scholar was hit, it meant Athena blessed their ideas. If they dodged, well, let's just say it was a short visit. One poor Pythagorean got pelted with leaves for arguing that numbers were more sacred than olives. Athena says, he left covered in chlorophyll and a new fear of botany. Modern plant biologists have analyzed ancient olive leaves from the Academy's site and found nothing supernatural. The veins are standard for olive trees, no divine patterns detected. But that hasn't stopped New Age philosophers from claiming the trees have energetic signatures linked to Athena's wisdom. Next, they'll start selling Athena-approved olive leaf tea. Athena sighs, and I'll have to sue for trademark infringement. As the afternoon wears on, students gather under the Academy's oldest olive tree, the one Plato swears is the direct descendant. They pass around a jar of sacred olive oil, rubbing it into their scrolls to enhance enlightenment. Read, prevent moth damage. One student, clearly tired of abstract debates, secretly takes a bite of an olive and promptly chokes on its bitterness. Welcome to philosophy, Athena murmurs, where even the snacks are existential. By sunset, the Academy is lit by olive oil lamps, their flames casting leaf-shaped shadows on the walls. Plato sits beneath his sacred tree, scribbling notes on a fresh olive leaf, while students debate the ethics of pruning in hushed tones. You lean against the trunk, feeling the rough bark under your fingers, and realize that here, in this grove of thinkers, the olive tree isn't just a symbol, it's a silent professor, a muse, and a reminder that wisdom, like a tree, grows slowly, messily, and sometimes with a few bitter olives along the way. The first sign of trouble is the sky, a relentless, bone-dry blue that hangs over Attica like a cracked pottery lid, slowly baking the earth beneath. You wake to the sound of farmers cursing as they kick parched clods of dirt, their hands calloused from digging futile wells. Athena stands at the edge of the sacred grove, her brow furrowed, as studies a tree whose leaves have turned from silver green to a dull, dusty gray. Drought, she says, the ancient Greek equivalent of a bad hair day, except instead of frizz, We get famine. Within weeks, the land is a parched wasteland. Rivers shrink to trickles. Goats nibble on leather straps. Out of desperation, and the olive trees, once plump with promise, look like skeletal fingers reaching for a sky that offers no rain. You watch as a farmer kneels before his favorite tree, whispering prayers into its brittle roots, then turns away, shoulders hunched, to feed his family a meager stew of barley and boiled weeds. Ancient Greece was no stranger to climate disasters. Geological records show periods of severe drought in the 4th century BCE, which likely contributed to the decline of some city-states. For Athens, reliant on olive oil for trade and survival, a prolonged drought was an existential threat. As the historian Thucydides wrote during a similar crisis, the olives withered, and with them, the hope of men who forgot that even gods cannot command the rain. Olive trees have a survival trick up their bark. When stressed by drought, they shed most of their leaves to conserve water, entering a state of semi-dormancy that ancient Greeks called the silent year. Farmers would tap the trunks, listening for a hollow sound to determine if the tree was still alive, like giving a wooden door a "you in there" knock. It's like the trees playing possum, Athena says, rapping a trunk with her knuckle. Except instead of predators, they're avoiding Zeus's lousy weather management. Did Athena's sacred groves have a divine drought resistance advantage, or was it just smart agriculture? Some texts claim the trees in her groves survived droughts that killed others, leading devotees to pour libations of olive oil on the roots as a water substitute. Modern botanists roll their eyes, noting that the groves were probably planted in deeper soil or shaded slopes. Practical choices, not miracles. Zeus still claims the droughts were my fault, Athena mutters, because olive trees steal all the rain's attention. Petty, right? Just when it seems the trees can't endure another day, a new threat arrives. A dark cloud on the horizon that isn't rain, but locusts. Millions of them, buzzing like a broken lyre, descending on the parched landscape. You duck as they swarm past, their bodies clicking against each other like tiny relentless cymbals. The farmers scream, waving torches, but the locusts ignore them, zeroing in on the one green thing left, the olive trees. But here's the surprise. The locusts hesitate. They land on the leaves, take a few nibbles, then flutter away, as if the taste offends their insect palates. Athena grins. Olive leaves are full of bitter compounds. Oh, European, she explains, it's like spraying your salad with hot sauce to keep picky eaters away. The locusts think they're dining on a philosopher's ego, bitter and not worth the effort. In the aftermath of a locust plague, Athenians would collect the dead locusts and mix them into their wine scum fertilizer, convinced the protein boost would make the trees stronger. Nature's recycling program, Athena says, watching a farmer shovel locust carcasses into a compost pile. Just don't ask about the smell. Spoiler, it's worse than Poseidon's locker room. Did the olive tree's natural defenses against pests make it a divinely chosen crop, or was it just evolution doing its thing? Creationists in antiquity swore Athena had engineered the tree to repel enemies, while modern scientists point to millennia of natural selection. Either way, Athena says, plucking a surviving olive from a stripped tree, the locusts lost, and the tree's still standing. Call it evolution, call it magic, just don't call it late for dinner. As the rains finally come, months later, the olive trees stir back to life. New leaves sprout from seemingly dead branches, tiny and tender, like green apologies from the sky. The farmers weep as they kneel in the mud, planting new owl-marked seeds beside their resurrected trees. See, Athena says, her voice softening, they don't just survive, they remember how to grow, even after the worst storms. The roots hold on. But here's the lingering mystery scholars can't let go of. Records from the time speak of a great famine, where olive trees slept and men ate stone. Some argue the trees truly died and were miraculously revived by Athena's intervention. Others say it's a poetic way of describing a prolonged drought. Personally, Athena says watching a rainbow arc over the regreening grove. I think the truth is somewhere between a miracle and a really stubborn root system. Either way, the story makes for a good metaphor at dinner party. The creak of wooden hulls and the salty tang of sea spray wake you before dawn. You're sprawled on a Phoenician trading ship, its decks crowded with clay jars stamped with Athena's owl. Thousands of them, bound for lands beyond the horizon. Athena is leaning against the mast, her cloak billowing like a storm cloud that forgot to be angry, watching the first rays of sun gild the waves. Hope you packed seasickness remedies, she says, because today we're gonna make like an olive seed and go viral. Ancient edition. The Phoenicians are master sailors, their ships sleek and fast, carved with motifs of sea gods that Poseidon would probably find tacky. But their real cargo isn't just oil, it's the olive tree itself. We've been smuggling saplings in our water barrels for decades, whispers a crewman named Hiram, winking as he taps a hidden compartment in the hold. Athenians think they're the only ones who can grow wisdom. Please, we've got deserts that beg for a hardy tree. By the 8th century BCE, Phoenician traders had spread olive trees across the Mediterranean, from North Africa to Spain. They didn't just sell oil, they introduced the tree to cultures that would come to cherish it, like the Egyptians, who would later crown their pharaohs with olive wreaths, a fact Athena pretends not to find mildly irritating. They basically started the first plant influencer account. She mutters, "Follow us for olive tips and epic sailboat selfies." When the ship docks in Egypt, you're greeted by the sight of the Great Pyramid, still a work in progress, its limestone blocks gleaming like giant sun-baked olives. But the real surprise is in the embalming tent, where a priest is slathering a mummy's bandages with a thick, aromatic oil. Olive oil, he says proudly, preserves the body for eternity. Also repels sand fleas, 2 birds, 1 sacred tree. Athena leans in, wrinkling her nose. Remind me to never ask for an Egyptian spa day. Eternal youth, my helmet. This stuff smells like a camel's lunchbox. Did the Phoenicians steal Athena's sacred saplings? Or did the Athenians gift them as part of a diplomatic deal? Some texts claim Athena cursed any sailor who smuggled a seed, while others say she encouraged the spread, seeing it as wisdom's natural expansion. I had mixed feelings, she admits, watching a young Egyptian girl plant a sapling near the Nile. On one hand, globalization. On the other, why do they keep pairing my tree with crocodile gods? As you wander the Nile Delta, you see olive groves thriving in the fertile silt, their roots drinking from the river's lifeblood. Egyptian farmers have adapted Athena's pruning techniques, but with a twist. They leave the lowest branches untrimmed, letting them trail in the mud to absorb the earth god's strength. Cute, Athena says, but everyone knows wisdom grows from above, not from getting your leaves dirty. Still, points for effort. Phoenician sailors believed olive oil could calm the seas, pouring libations into the waves before storms. It's like tipping the bartender, Athena jokes. Except the bartender is Poseidon, and he's still gonna spill your drink just to be petty. One ship's log even claims a storm stopped after they threw a jar of sacred Athenian oil overboard, though historians suspect they just sailed into calmer winds. Details, Athena shrugs. Mythology is 90% marketing, 10% actual miracles. Geneticists today trace most Mediterranean olive trees back to a common ancestor in Asia Minor, not Attica, which throws a wrench into Athens' divine origin story. Fine, Athena huffs. Maybe I adopted the tree instead of inventing it. But does it matter? We're basically family now. Besides, have you seen the Spanish olive groves? Gorgeous. I take full credit for their aesthetic. As the sun sets over the Nile, painting the pyramids in hues of burnt olive, you board the ship again, now carrying Egyptian papyrus, and a single precious cargo. A sapling from the first grove planted beyond Greece, its roots wrapped in linen soaked in Athenian oil. A symbolic exchange, Hiram says, patting the pot. Your wisdom, our waves, together we make the world greener. Athena smiles, tracing the owl stamp on a jar. He's a poet, that one. Maybe I should hire him as my PR guy. Athena's olives, now with 50% more Nile magic. The hum of a subway train jolts you awake, but instead of ancient olive groves, you're surrounded by sleek glass buildings and the faint scent of espresso mixed with olive oil. Athena is leaning against a modern-day Acropolis metro station sign, her spear now a carbon fiber cane, helmet replaced by a sleek silver headband that wouldn't look out of place at a tech startup. Welcome to 2025, she says, where my olive trees have TikTok accounts, and scientists argue over whether I'm the OG brand influencer. You step onto the streets of Athens, where the Parthenon glows in the distance, its marble floodlit against the twilight. Around you, tourists wear t-shirts printed with her owl logo, and a food truck sells Athena's sacred olive fries. Extra salt, extra mythology. But the real showstopper is the Olympic Park, where a giant sculpture of an olive branch twists toward the sky, its metal leaves shimmering with solar panels. Modern Greeks still crown winners with olive wreaths, Athena says, tapping her cane on the pavement. But now they're grown in labs instead of sacred groves. Progress, I guess. The olive branch has been the centerpiece of Olympic symbolism since the ancient games. But in the modern era, it's taken on new life. The 2004 Athens Games used wreaths made from wild olive trees, from the sacred grove of Olympia, a direct link to antiquity. Today, geneticists are sequencing the DNA of those ancient trees, hoping to clone them and protect against climate change. They call it de-extinction for culture. Athena says, I call it finally appreciating my interior design choices. In a lab on the outskirts of Athens, scientists are growing smart olive trees with genes edited to resist pests and drought. Each tree has a QR code on its trunk, linking to a digital diary of its ancestral lineage. Spoiler, most claim descent from Athena's original sapling. They even tested spraying them with nano coatings to repel graffiti, Athena says, which is ironic, considering the ancient Greeks invented graffiti. They just called it temple doodling. Is Athena's olive tree the first cultural IP in history? Some scholars argue that by claiming the tree as sacred, Athens trademarked an entire ecosystem, influencing everything from coinage to diplomacy. Others roll their eyes, saying please, IP laws didn't exist until the 18th century. She was just a goddess who really liked olives. Athena sniffs. Tell that to the Spartans who tried to steal my brand. I trademarked the owl logo in 450 BCE. Look it up. You visit a museum where a 3,000-year-old olive seed, etched with a tiny owl, rests under glass, next to a modern 3D printed replica. A school group crowds around, kids arguing over whether the ancient Greeks would have had olive oil TikTok challenges. Oh, we had challenges, Athena mutters, like don't get eaten by a minotaur while pruning. Way more exciting than your slicing an olive in one take. Trends. In Crete, a village still practices the Elea ritual, though now they use drones to inspect sacred groves instead of sacrificial virgins. The drone operator has to be digitally pure, Athena explains, which means no unsavory TikTok drafts. Progress, folks. As climate change threatens Mediterranean olive groves, conservationists debate whether to prioritize ancient sacred varieties or modern hardy hybrids. Some say we're betraying Athena's legacy. A scientist tells you over a cup of olive oil-infused coffee. Others say she'd want her trees to survive, even if it means a little gene editing. She was the goddess of wisdom, not stubbornness. Athena scoffs. I invented stubbornness, but fine, clone away. Just make sure the new trees still have owl-shaped leaf scars. Brand consistency is key. As night falls, You walk through the National Garden, where a descendant of Athena's original tree stands, its trunk protected by a ring of solar-powered lights. A couple sits beneath it, sharing a packet of olive chips, their phone screens glowing with photos of the Acropolis. "See," Athena says softly, "she's not just a myth anymore. She's a snack, a symbol, a science project. But underneath it all, she's still the tree that grew when the gods threw tantrums, that fed cities, that outlived empires." You lean against the tree, feeling its bark, rougher than the ancient stories, but just as steady. The lights of the city flicker around you, but here in the garden's quiet, you can almost hear the rustle of leaves that have whispered through millennia, of gods and farmers, sailors and scientists, all connected by a single seed, pressed with an owl's image. Now as the story fades into the quiet of the night, let your breath slow to match the gentle sway of imaginary olive leaves in a breeze that smells of warm stone and distant sea. The world we've wandered through, from gods squabbling over trees to scientists cloning ancient wisdom, feels both far away and close, like a dream you're half afraid to wake from. Imagine the soft glow of a single olive oil lamp, still burning in the corner of your mind, its flame casting no shadows, just a gentle haze that blurs the edges of time. You can almost hear Athena's voice, now a murmur saying something about roots and resilience, but it's lost in the rustle of your own pillow. The weight of the day melts away, replaced by the certainty that stories like this, stories of trees that outlive storms, of wisdom that grows in the dirt, are a kind of magic that stays with you quiet and sure, long after the last word is spoken. Let your eyelids grow heavy, guided by the rhythm of a tale that's wrapped itself around you like a warm toga. The olive tree's journey is done for now, but in the space between wakefulness and sleep, its leaves still rustle, whispering that all good things, whether sacred seeds or sleepy nights, take root in patience. So drift now, let the dream carry you, and know that when you wake, the world will still be there, a little wiser, a little greener, just like the tree that taught us to grow through it all.